Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the X-Force Global channel. We got a few things to talk about for Bitcoin's current price action. Nothing really too much to update for the current price action within this range. Still trying to configure whether we are breaking above this region here at the 66.8K, which will pretty much validate a continuation to the upside. But nevertheless, I still think we have a pretty solid low being in, as we have discussed from the previous analysis. But nevertheless, I still do think that there is a little bit of risk possibly for the ultimate short-term bears or bulls in that matter, where we might go for another pullback before we go rocket out of here. So I'll get the bad news out of the way, but without any further ado, here is our first scenario, which is a possible 1-2 being created. Now, there is a possibility where 1-2-1-2 is being created, but for now, we just want to keep with confirmation levels being validated and not validated, because right now we don't have a clear validation, although it's still very nice, very, very nice that we're going up. That was the expectation in the first place, right? But we still have one more resistance to go, which is this resistance here at the 1382 of past this possible A wave of the flat. And if we do get one more pullback in a C wave fashion as an impulse, then I do believe that this is going to be another secured low before we move up. So we are still a bull, ladies and gentlemen, until proven otherwise. We could be completely wrong, but the more we do, the reason why I like this is the more we consolidate within these regions, then 100% for sure that something is telling us that we're still going up for higher levels, even if we get rejected from here. The overall expectation is still trying to retest that 70K region. So how is this first scenario going to play out? Well, we entered the B pocket expanded flat variation zone, which means we're past the A wave, 100% of it, but we are also going into the 382 past that 100%. So thus we are within what's known as the B pocket zone of the 138% zone. It could be anywhere between the 101% to the 138% or the 1382 Fibonacci level. So this golden Fibonacci zone for an expanded B pocket zone is a really good spot, and we're already getting some resistance within that region. Now, how do we create that? Well, we have a possible WXY. Since wave B could be any corrective structure, we have an ABC going into W, we have another expanded flat going into wave X, and another possible ABC going into wave Y. Whether wave Y is complete or not, we can still go for one more high. Any higher, we are already so close to the invalidation of this, and we just continue the idea of being a bull, which is fine by me. But again, we still want to talk about the possibilities of what kind of pullback is in store for us. Now, there are two types of pullbacks, like I said, okay? The first pullback right here, as an expanded flat, we're looking for that final C wave to the downside as a 5-wave motive actionary wave for the final leg of the C wave, okay? So if we get this final C wave, that's going to put us back into at least the 618 or even the 1618 zone, all the way up. I'd rather have us, kind of stay in between the 1-1 to the 618 zone. If we do go for that 1618, let's actually measure that out. So if we measure out via fib extensions, we can see that the 1618 matches very nicely with the 618, right? We don't want to be going down further down to the 2618 because that would be a completely different structure in my opinion. I think from here, what we can say is that 1618 is also being very nicely aligned with the 618 Fibonacci. I think that is a very good zone that's going to be secured, and I think that's where a lot of limit orders are currently being built up if you're looking at the order book. Other than that, this scenario doesn't really need any clear adjustments in terms of how we're going to be looking at it, since we're already above the term or the beginning or the origin of wave 1. As long as the termination of wave C ends in the region of the 618 to the 1618, that's going to give us a very good look, which is very important as well for how this expanded flat is going to be playing out. And overall in time, that would put us in a clear 1-2 consolidation zone. So if that plays out, expect us to at least come back and retest the 70K regions. But other than that, there's really no other way we can see this other than this being a possible three-way move up. Now, there is another corrective pattern that is also in the works. So how would we see that? Let's put this into the ABC. We could say that we're in a possible overshoot of some kind of leading diagonal as well. So if we're still considering this as an impulse, this as a corrective move, this as an impulse, this as a corrective move, and this as an impulse, this can also just as likely be as an impulse with an overshoot. Now, these get a little bit trickier because now we're already at peak validation of it. So if we do continue up, this scenario also gets negated. But here, I'm here to give you all the options for the shorter time frames because I know there's a lot of you that trade the shorter time frames. But in the case we do get a pullback, this will be in the fashion of a three wave. And that also in store will give us that same similar pullback into that zone of that 618, hopefully, right? If we get back into this zone, then that's going to give us, especially as a three wave, that's going to give us more confidence that, okay, maybe a diagonal has also played out as well. Now, I don't like diagonals in general, even when they're at peak validation. If we get that pullback, then I would consider adjusting my counts as a possible leading diagonal if we do pull back as a three wave. But again, it doesn't really matter. The targets are very similar for that flat structure that gives us that same 1-2 count that will lead us into an extended wave 3 possibly. So this is another possibility. Again, the rules for the diagonals, again, wave 1 it could be any length. It could be shorter or longer than wave 3. It really doesn't matter. And then if we have this coming down as a corrective structure, what's next? We have to have either a 5-3-5-3-5 or a 3-3-3-3 for a leading diagonal with no truncation, as you can't have a truncation for a leading diagonal. You can have an overshoot, but you can't have a truncation. As for an ending diagonal, you can have only a 3-3-3-3-3, which is all ABC corrective structures or zigzags of a zigzag family. That means that you can have a truncation as well for an ending diagonal. So those are the kind of contrasting differences between a leading and an ending diagonal, something to keep in mind. So if we do create a 5-wave impulse here, we can, and we're doing this kind of formation of creating a diagonal contracting look, then you're gonna still want to abide by 5-3-5-3-5, especially if your first structure is looking more like a 5-wave structure. I think you can count this as a 3-wave, but it really doesn't matter again, right? We still have a 5-3-5-3-5. Even a 3-3-3-3-3 would also work. So either way, that still gives us some kind of confidence that a diagonal could be in the works, right? So we do have a small overshoot on the current time frames. So I do think that this is a possibility. That target bringing down for wave 2 is also similar in store for us. So what would the bullish scenario be? Now, the bullish scenario is just as bullish, but if we're working in what is going to be a possible 1-2-1-2, we could say that, again, similar 5-wave actionary wave to the upside. We can say that this is a 1-2, possibly working for a wave 3, 4, 5 of some sort. And if we're going to be nesting this structure, we could say that this was a 1-2-3-4-5 going into an intermediate 2. And this was another flat type structure here. I think that was a flat. I can't see right now. Hold on. 3, 4, 5. No, it was it looks like from the shorter time frames, ABC, WXY. This looks like a 3-wave structure. So this would be a WXY. So if we have a 1-2 being built up here as well, let's see where our Fibonacci's are giving us. Now, for this important thing is that although very bullish, the only thing that is kind of pulling me back and why we need some confirmation above breaking this, as I've mentioned, is that we've only hit the 382 Fibonacci. And that is the absolute minimum expectation for me for a wave 2 pullback. But in a bull market, you know, especially within nested structures, a 382 pullback is fine. That's what we had on the macro perspective as well for that flat. So no surprises if we just continue up from here. All three scenarios lead up to the upside anyways, right? I wouldn't be surprised if we came back down here and tried to secure that 618 zone as well. But for this one, especially for the bulls, is of particular interest because we could be creating a 1-2-1-2. Now, the evidence behind this is that we had this strong impulse and that broke out of a clear zone. And all we have to do again is break above this one, and that will confirm the continuation to the upside, in my opinion. So again, 5-wave move up for wave 1. And then we have a WXY for wave 2. And it looks like we could be creating another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in this internal wave 3 as some kind of extension. So possibly another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of a smaller degree. And that would put us working it for a possible wave 3 of the intermediate degree. And then 4, 5, 3 of the higher degree would be made, 4, 5. And that should put us right around in that zone of that confluent zone at 70K from here. And that is where I would expect a larger pullback. Now, this doesn't have the best look, right? So that is why I'm still continuing to monitor this idea. But I do like it if, in the case we do break above this with volume, and then we come back up and, just continue with shallow retracements as we keep going and creating that extension. So this 5 would end in this as a 1, 2, and then we would continue up for the larger 5-way move of a 5th. And that in return would finish off this submenu at 5, going into that final 5th wave target from this to this. So we would have a 1 here, 3, 4, and then 5, completing our minuet degree. So that, I think that's kind of the overall expectation we should be looking for. And again, overall targets we won't know, but I'm assuming once we do get a little bit more data, we can work with Fibonacci's based on how this larger 1-2 pullback will happen. We can measure that via 1 to 2, and then wave 3 targets is that 1, 6, 1, 8. So if we do that, it'd probably give us a target around 80 to 85K. It won't really matter because when you're compounding price and the tick movements, it's only a 5 to 6% movement from 80K to 85K regions, right? So as price is increasing, it becomes more compounded, and the amount of ticks required to move a certain percentage lessens. So this is how I would say we're going to be entering that continuation for the upside for the bullish case. And in summary, again, that is kind of the first expectation we're going to be looking for. And then again, the second expectation is this ABC flat of this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then, like I said, that diagonal possibility is also in the store for us. So hopefully that was helpful, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to try and keep this a little bit short. I think there is, again, I did discuss the previous scenario of a bear scenario where we could be ending, but this is also starting to lose its validity. I don't know. It's difficult, still very difficult for me to kind of say if this is with high conviction. I really want to see a clear count for this. It may be an ABC into a W, and then another ABC of some sort being built, but I just can't see it. It's still break above into this region, and let alone once it does break above that, we'll already be in a bullish territory. And from here, around these levels here, if we're going to be seeing some kind of expanded flat is going to be playing out, and we're still in a transitory phase for this wave B of this wave C of Y, then it's difficult. It has to really start creating that now. So if you want to be technically both bearish, like really bearish, and see us go down into the 56 to 57K levels, you're going to want it to see at least short-term bullishness. So you got to learn how to work with the hypocrisy going around, right? You can't trade against yourself. The only person that you're fooling is yourself as an analyst. So if you're a bear overall, you're waiting on the sidelines pretty much at this point, because if you're looking for a pullback now, you're looking for a short-term pullback, but you're going to have to be forced as a bull if it does get supported at the 618. So that is how you should be organizing your scenarios. So I think those are the only ways we're going to be able to do this in terms of the scenarios. Nothing really much to update. Hopefully that was helpful. I'll see you guys in the next update. If you guys are interested in joining the X-Force Global Discord membership, please do join me. The link is in the description below. And of course, follow me on social media at X-Force Global on Twitter. Thank you very much. See you guys in the next video.